Hello again, friends. It's Chris here, and this is a tutorial for my fractal drawing webpage that lets you explore the Mandelbrot set and the Julia sets using HTML5 and JavaScript. Just a real quick sustenance break here. Thank you for your visit. If you like the content here, please like and subscribe. And if you enjoy drawing fractals, please consider a donation or becoming a patron on Patreon. Thank you. So what are we doing here? Well, first we're going to increase the size of this image so that it is clearer. So now we've got a nice 1200 by 1200. This image width and image height, this is the size of the image or in pixels. And you can right click. Since this is a canvas element, you can just save it as a PNG file at any time and or copy it and paste it, whatever you want with it. If you want to reset your values back to the initial conditions for any of these, you can just hit the reset button. And if you hit reload, like say you're thinking about changing something, you change your mind, just hit reload. It'll bring back the initial condition, the current conditions for whatever group you're working on. And so again, what is going on here? This is the complex plane. So these are real numbers on the x-axis, and these are imaginary numbers on the y-axis. And together they form a complex number. So each pixel in this image corresponds to a complex number that you can see down here when we move the mouse around. And so what basically happens is for every pixel, we're going to do something to that coordinate at that position, and then we're going to test it. And if it passes the test, we're going to assign it a color based on on the current iteration. And then if it doesn't pass a test, we're going to take the value and we're going to put it back in and just keep repeating over and over again until we either run out of iterations, 100 in this case, or the values all get assigned a number. So you can see this gradient of green here as the numbers increase. It gets to a darker green and then it transitions into like this red color. So first we're going to take a look at the Julia set because it has all the functionality that the Mandelbrot set has, and then a couple other things. So everything we can do with this, we can do with the Mandelbrot set. So you can see that we have a couple extra things here. The first one is the C value, and this is what differentiates Julia sets, is that for every complex number, there is a corresponding Julia set. And so there's infinite number of complex numbers, so there's infinite number of Julia sets. And in this case, this one, the set is actually what's left. So it's all these black pixels here when it's all said and done. And we can go ahead and modify these manually. So if we want to see what the Julia set is at minus 0.75, you can see you got some different dynamics going on. But it's not very intuitive to, type in a value and then hit update and wait for it to draw and just to see what's going, to see if it's cool or not. Because you can see it's kind of, this one isn't as interesting as the last two. So that's why we have this boundary here. If you click on that, it will use a different algorithm to draw the boundary of the Julia set. And here with this option, you can move your mouse around and you can kind of see the dynamics of the different Julia sets as the mouse gets translated into a C value. And you can see up here the C values get modified as you move the mouse around. And so if you want to draw the Julia set at this for any particular C value, you just click the left mouse button, and it will draw them. It will draw the set for you and make some cool colors. And if you want to zoom up on it, you can use what we have down here, this last thing I need to show you, and that's the top left corner. That's what this top left real and imaginary is. And here we start at -2 and 2, so the corner's here, and it spans 4 units in both directions. So we have a 4x4 box that starts at -2 and 2. And again, we can modify these values by hand. Like say you want to zoom up on it a little bit. You can type them in. Again, not very intuitive, kind of a pain if you want to get something precise to have to know where the values are. So that's why you can just make a box to zoom in. So if you click once with the mouse, it'll start as a draw box. And then if you click twice to end it, it will draw that fractal. And now as you can see, the aspect ratios are different. and so it looks like it's tilted and not as flat as it was, and that can be kind of annoying. You know, if you're exploring it, you want to keep the aspect ratio the same most likely, so you can just lock it with this radio button here, and now when you draw a box, it will keep the proportions, it will maintain your ratios between your image and your spans, so you can keep zooming in without worry about skewing your image or making it look tilted or anything like that based on different properties that you have on your image. And so yeah, that's that. And again, you can go to your boundary, and this second set of iterations is 300,000. That's the number of times it makes a dot, the number of dots it makes, or pixels, to fill that in. And then this F is for fill, and that's the number of iterations that it goes on the colors before it stops. And again, for fractals like this one, where it gets filled in, you don't even need 100 iterations. But then if you look at the initial set, I mean, you can iterate this for infinite iterations, and it will never fill in this area of blackness here. So I mean, it just depends on the C value and the fractal. And so next we have some colors that we can take a look at. And this first drop down is choose between normal and inverse. And it's not necessarily the exact inverse color, it's just how the colors start. So if they're normal, they start with white values and move and change, and if they're inverse, they start with black values. So this is the same fractal, but same color algorithm, but just starting with zeros, and with 0 as your main color instead of black, or instead of white, excuse me. And this second drop box, that just changes the dwell color. So whenever you have that's left over at the end, until it gets assigned an iteration color, it'll be given this color. So you can have black on white, or black on black, or white on white, or whatever you want to, whatever combination you think looks the coolest. And then, so we got these three buttons here. The way the colors work is I use 3 values, integer values, and they're the last 3 values in the URL here. You can actually change these if you want manually. See, like, and it'll change the fractal color for you. But they work best, from my experience, with 3 prime numbers. But you can put any numbers in there between 0 and 1,000. And if you change colors, it uses a little routine to get you a nice couple of numbers that give you some smooth gradients. So you got a nice smooth gradient here from the black into the yellow, into the green, into the red. But if you want a little more variation, then you can click the More Colors button, and that will still give you some gradient, but you can see the gradients change much more rapidly. There's a lot of variation in these, and I mean, like I said, you're going to get, this one's a lot of blue and red. You know, some of them you're going to get some crazy Alice in Wonderland stuff, but not really on that one. That's what for the even more colors. But you know, for people with epilepsy, and if you have any other kind of issues that you can have triggers with high colors and high intensity, then I make a little warning to turn this on. And so when you click this one, you can get some really crazy colors, and you know, this one's not so bad, but like there's a lot more color variations here. Like you can see, you can get some really wacky Alice in Wonderland looking things here. And one thing that's kind of neat with these really wacky colors is that when you get a fractal, like say a one like this, and at one point, you know, the fractal kind of doesn't resolve, and so all these wacky colors just kind of turn into noise. Oh, that ratio's not locked. Let me lock the aspect ratio here. And let me find a better, let me go to the Mandelbrot set. This is easier to demonstrate with these wacky colors. So we'll go ahead and reset everything. And so like if we zoom up here on this corner right here, this little outcrop, and then we kind of get digging in here, let's really get in deep. And if you hit this more high intensity, you can see how it kind of creates these interesting, like organic looking shapes that are almost like roots or tree branches before the fractal kind of can't be before you can't resolve these structures anymore because of the the resolution it's at. But you can get some pretty wacky looking fractals. Like here's another pretty interesting one. And again, this is getting lucky with the high intensity here, because sometimes you can get some pretty flickering intense colors. But this one actually is pretty cool, so I might go ahead and save this one. So you can just save it whatever you want. We'll just save this as Fractal 1. It's just a PNG file. And now it's downloaded, so you can, if you get cool fractal. But yeah, this kind of looks like almost like a forest with some green fog in it or something, like an alien forest or something. Anyway, so one last thing I want to show you is just how to use the touch. So this is just the same website loaded up on my iPad, and when you go to the boundary, you can just move your finger around on the canvas. I'm just moving my finger, swiping, or just I'm not swiping, I'm just moving it. And then if you are ready, you can hit the fill button, and it will fill the fractal in. You can also, I have it set up to where you should be able to tap, but I don't have a tolerance set. So unless you've got like ninja tap skills and you don't move when you tap, it's most likely going to register it as a move. And on this app, on the touch version, when you do a drag, that's how you draw boxes, is you just start your finger where you want the box to go and then drag the box out and then lift your finger up when you're done. If you want to cancel, then while you're dragging, you just tap with another finger. So I'm dragging with my index finger here, and I want to cancel, I just tap with my middle finger somewhere else on the canvas element. So that's how that works. And I would like to, in the future, improve the mobile and tablet interfaces, and maybe tweak the touch controls, add a little tolerance to that ninja tap. But make these all this stuff, maybe be able to swipe it in and out, so you can just have this big fractal on your screen. I have to do some learning. I developed this obviously as a desktop app, but I wanted to include some mobile and tablet functionality. It actually works out pretty well on my iPad. It's pretty fun to play with on there. So there's my library. But anyway, so that's pretty much everything. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, if you like the video and the content here, please subscribe and give me a like. And if you have some fun drawing these fractals, please consider a donation or becoming a patron on Patreon. Otherwise, have a great day or evening or morning, wherever it is you're working on this, and happy fractaling. Thanks.